Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a Criminally Basic podcast. My name is Megan,
And I'm Hannah.
and this week we will be discussing a rather straightforward case with a tragic backstory and an infuriating crime. Today's case deals with the dangers of being too trusting and naive online, which I know is a message a lot of us grew up with. Be careful who you talk to online, don't meet strangers off the internet. But this case takes that to a tragic end with a victim who wasn't even involved in the online relationship in the first place. This week, we're covering the murder of Cynthia Hoffman committed by her friend Denali Brehmer. So, Hannah, have you ever dabbled in online dating?
I think everyone has.
Right, yeah. I know you have, I have, a lot of people in our generation have.
Hmm.
It's really, really common
Yeah.
nowadays. However, a lot of people I know who do participate in the whole online dating scene are aware that people online are not always who they claim to be. That is why things like social media and other public records are really useful in verifying if someone is real or not. So before you go out with someone or, you take your relationship to the next level or to any further, most people look up who the person that they're talking to is.
Always.
So that's why it's wild that in 2019, then 18-year-old Denali Brehmer of Anchorage, Alaska, started a long-distance relationship with a man who called himself Tyler. According to an article from the New York Times written by Neil Victor, Tyler said he was from Kansas and that he was a millionaire.
Sounds lovely.
Right? I couldn't find exactly how long they were talking online. In this case is still ongoing, but an article I found from the Indy Star by Justin Mack said that they had only been speaking for several months. So take that as you will.
That's not enough time to know someone.
No, it definitely isn't. After those several months passed, Tyler proposed an idea. He said that he would send Denali $9 million if she killed someone and sent him photos and videos of the murder. At this point, any sane, normal person would just block that person's number, call the police, and say, hey, there's this crazy person who just offered me money to kill someone, and then move on with your life.
Yeah.
Well, to Denali, that $9 million sounded pretty good. So she got to planning the crime. She recruited 4 friends to help her, 2 of whom have been named as 16-year-old Caden McIntosh and 19-year-old Caleb Leyland, and the other 2 have not been named because of their status as juveniles. This group of clearly sane individuals just needed a victim, and the victim that they chose happened to be Denali's best friend, 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman. Cynthia, nicknamed Cece, had met Denali in high school, according to a Washington Post article by Antonia Farzan. However, Cynthia and her family didn't know Denali as Denali. They knew her as Angela. Apparently, Denali had a habit of changing her name and going by different aliases. But for clarity's sake, I'm just going to call her Denali to, keep everything straightforward.
That's concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. Something important to know about Cynthia was that she had a developmental disability. While I couldn't find exactly what that disability was, the Washington Post article I mentioned earlier stated that her disability, quote, caused her to operate intellectually at a 7th grade level and likely made her vulnerable, end quote. Cynthia's father, Timothy Hoffman, would later say, quote, her disability just made her want to have friends. That's all she wanted, was just to be her friend, end quote.
This makes me so mad.
On June 2nd, 2019, Denali, Cynthia, and Caden, the 16-year-old, all went for a hike together on a trail near Thunderbird Falls. They drove there in a truck provided by Caleb, who was the other 19-year-old, and a few hours later, Cynthia's father called her, and she didn't pick up the phone. According to the Washington Post article, Timothy, her father, immediately knew that something was wrong. They didn't live together, but Cynthia did help her dad out with his work, and he owed her money from a job that they had recently completed together. When she didn't show up to collect that money and she didn't pick up her phone, his concern mounted. The next day, June 3rd, she still hadn't made contact, and she was reported missing by her now frantic father. He said, quote, "I put out search parties. I drove my motorcycle through the woods and bike paths. I floored it all over town, doing speed limits I should not have been doing, looking for my kid." End quote.
I mean, I can't blame him there at all.
Oh, absolutely not. I cannot even imagine the panic that he must have been feeling. While he was searching, Timothy had been exchanging texts with Angela, who, remember, is the name Denali went by to the Hoffman family.
Mhm.
Denali, as Angela, told him that she had dropped Cynthia off at a local park after they'd finished their hike and hadn't heard from her since. In her messages, she seemed genuinely concerned with the whereabouts of her friend. The next day, June 4th, was when his worst fears were confirmed. Cynthia had been found deceased in a river close to the hiking trails, bound with duct tape with a bullet
Oh.
wound in the back of her head. June 6th was when the police got to Denali. Initially, she denied having anything to do with the murder. She stated that it was Caden who fired the killing shot, but she had no idea that he was even planning on shooting Cynthia. However, it was not long before they discovered the truth. The two teens took Cynthia off the walking trail along the banks of the river, tied her up, and shot her in cold blood, all for money that was never coming. They then took
Oh.
her clothes, her purse, and her phone to another nearby park and burned them. On June 9th, police got to Tyler, the supposed millionaire who masterminded this whole affair. However, as I'm sure we can all assume by now, Tyler was not Tyler at all. In reality, he was 21-year-old Darren Schillmiller from Indiana. The police were able to recover all of the correspondence between Darren and Denali, even though Denali had deleted the text messages. And once she learned that the man who she had killed for wasn't who he said he was, she confessed to everything. Darren was a sick, twisted man who wanted photos and videos of people being tortured and killed. And Denali, for whatever reason, was willing to make this happen all for the promise of money. What's wild to me is that not one of the teens involved with Cynthia's murder raised any flags. Because remember, it wasn't just Denali. There were 4 other people involved in this murder. She got her friends to go
Yeah.
along with her by promising them hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not one of them thought to say, this doesn't seem right. Are you sure we should be taking someone's life because a guy from the internet says he'll give us money?
Someone should have thought better, but unfortunately, people will do a lot for money.
They will. And I think it's so sad that this isn't like early 2000s dawn of the internet. This is 2 years ago. This is less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And these are adults. These aren't children. Like Denali was 18. Another one of the people involved was 19. We did have a 16-year-old and some juveniles. We don't know exactly how old those other two were. But still, these are all people who have grown up with the message of don't trust people online, and yet they still committed this horrific crime. Unfortunately, while everyone involved in this case is arrested, Cynthia was not the only victim of Darren's sick mind and Denali's twisted love for him.
Excuse me?
Yeah, get ready. This is dark. This is dark. Darren had Denali sexually assault up to 3 people, all of whom were minors, and film the acts.
Oh my God.
We know that one of these videos has not been recovered, but there is photo and video evidence of the other 2 that were assaulted by Denali. Why she did this, I don't know. I couldn't find if there was money involved as an incentive in these crimes, but either way, it is absolutely sick.
I don't think sick is even the right word to cover how bad this is.
As of June 2019, Denali has been charged with first and second degree murder, as well as child pornography charges. Darren has been charged with murder and child pornography charges as well. They both pled not guilty, and their trials have not happened yet, so we will wait to see what comes of that. One thing is for sure, though, neither of them will ever get out of prison for the rest of their lives.
Thank God.
As far as the others involved, I do know that Caden and Caleb have both been charged with murder. As for the 2 juveniles who have not been named, I believe they have the same murder charge, but I can't be certain since there is very little information about them.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever find out about the other two kids.
No, probably not. I don't believe they're being charged as adults. I know that Caden and Caleb both are, but I don't think the other two. We don't know how old the other two are. So,
Yeah, but from what I'm assuming, they're like probably 16-ish, 16, 17-ish.
well, Caden was 16 and he's
Yeah.
being charged as an adult.
Oh, they might be way younger. Oh,
That's what my thought is as well. I don't even know how young they could be, but
no, but if
young.
they're charging the 16-year-old,
And keep in mind, I mean, the 16-year-old is the one who pulled the trigger.
but still, though.
Mm-hmm. To wrap this up, I'll leave us today with a quote from Timothy, Cynthia's grieving father. Quote, I have one thing on my mind, and that's to send all 6 of them to hell. And I ain't gonna rest until it's done. End quote. Thank you all for listening to A Criminally Basic Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, check us out at A Criminally Basic Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
Check out our sources as well as photos on our website, www.acriminallybasicpodcast.podbean.com.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.